What's up everybody, I'm Adam, you're watching Model Aviator, and this week we're going to feature a brand new RC electronics company, KMRC Models. The owner of KMRC Models contacted Model Aviator and asked us if we would be interested in reviewing their universal center burner or LED afterburner. Now they offer two. They offer the single universal for $38.99 that fits 70, 80, and 90 millimeter EDFs. And they have a double that fit the same size EDFs for $57.99. Now the interesting thing about those prices, just doing some research, and full disclosure, these are the first center burners that I have personally had any dealings with. I've never had products like this before. I've shopped them before, never really pulled the trigger, and most of your single center burners out there cost what the double cost from KMRC Model. They're a good bit more expensive and they're a lot heavier. The single center burner is advertised on KMRC Model at 17 grams. So we weighed it, and with everything you need to get it installed and make it work, it weighs 17 grams. So they are absolutely right on the money in their advertisement. Now this is a very neat piece of kit. The way that they enable this to be so light, there are very, very few components. You have the center burner itself, and there's a lot of wire here to make sure it can fit even the longest of EDFs, but you have the center burner unit itself. It's plastic. The LEDs are covered in kind of a heat shrink plastic. They recommend that you don't run the center burner without the EDF running and putting air over it, which I can understand, but it's a very, very lightweight unit. You have the center burner, you have the wire that goes to your control board, and you've got a little plug that unplugs from the control board on that end. So all you have to route through the airplane is just your wire. And when you're doing that, I strongly suggest that you use something like this. This makes your life much, much easier. Now, I got this with a Freewing A4, I believe. It just came with it so that you could route the rudder wire through the fuselage. If you don't have something like this, you might be able to get it from Motion RC. I'm not really sure, but if not, it's just a small piece of piano wire. It's 22 inches long. You can make something like this. You just need a handle on one end, a little hook on the other. You can essentially hook, you route this through the airplane, hook your plug around the hook, and that just pulls the plug right through the airplane. Makes your life so much easier. And then up front at the battery, you just simply plug it into the board. And the way this operates, which is really a neat part of this piece of kit, is it actually runs off of the balance lead on your flight battery, your 6-cell flight battery. You have one servo lead that you just attach into a Y harness and then attach to the throttle unit or throttle port in your receiver, and that's it. A lot of these center burning units require a separate 2 or 3 cell small LiPo battery to run the burner itself. Now, I have to say, we've tested this quite a bit. I gave one of these that they sent to us to my buddy Dustin. He installed his in his 70 millimeter E-Flite Thunderbirds F-16. I installed mine in my Avanti, my 80 millimeter Freewing Avanti. And on 4 to 4.5 minute flights, we can't tell a difference in the flight time. And even though this is only pulling from 1 or 2 cells and not all 6 cells, we're not noticing any difference in the way the cells come down. So however much power this burner over the course of a flight is pulling out of the particular couple of cells that it's pulling from, it's not using much because we see no difference. The cells come down balanced, and even with or without it. So that's a pretty cool, lightweight piece of kit. And what we're going to show you now is our installation in the Avanti. So check this out. And here's our installation in our Freewing 80 millimeter Avanti. And you can see that the curvature of the ears really make that a pretty tight fit. It's not going anywhere. you just run the zip tie through the cooling holes in the back of the motor and around those two ears, and you can cut those off if you want to, or you can leave it the way it is. There's no harm in leaving it that way, but if it makes you feel better to cut it flush, you can. You'll notice that with this zip tie, I had to run the zip tie through the hole closest to the ESC wire. That was a little bit fiddly with the Freewing motor because the cooling holes are so small. A lot of EDF motors have much bigger cooling holes, and that's much easier. That was a little fiddly, but still, all in all, a pretty easy installation. And you'll notice that we line it up so that the wires from the burner follow the wires to the ESC and go underneath the ESC plate, or in this case, I guess on top of it, since the airplane's upside down, and those route through to the front of the airplane in the battery compartment. You can see here, these are the wires from the center burner. They're actually on top of the ESC here with the airplane right side up. They just route from back there by the fan over the top of the ESC, and we routed them underneath the battery tray. 4 Phillips head screws. You can take most battery trays off, and we just ran them underneath the battery tray. You can see here that wire comes from underneath the battery tray, plugs into the board here. You have a convenient plug on the other end, and that's twofold. One end plugs into a simple Y harness that goes to the throttle port on your receiver, and the other is just a simple balance plug that you plug into the balance lead of your existing 6-cell pack to power your plane, and that powers the center burner for the flight. So as you can see, when it comes to installation, it is pretty simple. I really like the curvature here that the zip ties wrap around, and that pulls it really tight into the cooling holes. There are other center burners that look to be pretty easy to install, but I think as easy installation goes, I don't know that it gets much easier than this. I don't think that I've seen anything that I thought was that simple, and I love the simplicity. It's brilliant to me. Now, the one downside to these center burners that I think some people will see as a downside, and to be honest, I did too at first, and that is that they're on all the time. In other words, once you plug your center burner in, it's at a low flicker the entire time, and once you program it, the center burner comes in and starts getting brighter from that low flicker at the point that you program, but it's not completely off. As most of you well know, true afterburners in full-scale airplanes don't come on and actually light up and start to glow and go into afterburning until you start to engage the afterburner. You don't really see any light coming out of the tailpipe of a modern fighter jet with an afterburner until you plug the burner in. So not being able to program these as they are now, and that's an important part of this, to do that would be the downside. But that's where the very humble and awesome owner of KMRC Model comes in. Dustin and I relayed to him what we thought about that, and he came back with a very humble answer, and that is that he's heard that, he gets it, and the very next batch that come in are going to have more programming options so that you can start them from nothing without that low flicker, or you can do it with the low flicker if you want. So I just thought that that was really brilliant for a brand new company to do something that a lot of upstart new companies that get started, they have grand ideas and they're so certain of what they want to do that they're not humble enough to listen to consumers. I don't know why, but they just don't. This gentleman is absolutely not like that. He heard what the people that tested these things had to say and immediately did something about it. So the ones that you buy right now at the time that you're seeing this, you can't program them to go all the way off, but he estimates he'll be out of current stock around the end of August, and the next batch that comes in, you will be able to do that. And an interesting thing, and I made sure of this, if you have your center burner already installed and you decide that you would like to be able to program it differently, all you have to do is get one of the new boards or get one of the new Afterburner units, take the board, plug the new board into the burner that you already have installed in your airplane, and you'll be able to program the existing burner that you've already installed with the updated firmware, which I think is just awesome. So with that, we're going to show you how easy it is to program this. Now, what's entailed with programming it is once you get it installed, you simply run the airplane up to full throttle and you plug the lead from your board into the balance lead of your battery. When you do that, you will see a red light start to blink on the board. Then you take the throttle and bring it down to the point at which you want the afterburner to start progressively getting brighter and stop. Once you stop there, you'll see the light go red solid, and it's programmed. Really, really simple. Check this out. So yeah, nothing to it. Programming this stuff is an absolute piece of cake, and now that we've got it programmed, let's show you on the bench what it looks like. Pretty cool, you know? So, before we go to the flying footage, some footage of Dustin absolutely wrenching that F-16 around and me playing around with the Avanti to show you what these look like in the air, which is absolutely awesome. We're going to go to a little clip of Dustin and I having a conversation, and you can hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Here's what Dustin thinks of these. Alright, so we're here with my buddy Dustin. Dustin's one of the first guys that I thought about giving one of those KM center burners to, because he is a really good EDF pilot, has several EDFs. So I gave you one that was not from the factory batch, a little harder to install. What did you put that in?
I put it in the E-Flite Thunderbird's 70mm F-16. It looks really good, very bright, so much so that if you run it on up to the full light setting, it basically lights up the whole tube of the airplane. Which I think looks kind of cool, honestly, but if you were to want to make it more scale, you could always put a little bit of paint or a little bit of foil in there to prevent that. But it's definitely bright enough to see it very well, even during the daytime. So I will say that was my first comment when I got it going, is I would have expected to have it off from 0 power, and then come on at, let's say, 50%, and from 50% throttle have like 0 light to 100% light. However, it does have basically an idle on the entire time, which still looks really cool, and like the more I fly it, the less it bothers me, because it does look cool. But if I wanted to go for scale, I would probably want it to where it stays off until about 50% power or something around there. That's a personal preference. Everybody's going to be different on that, but that was my initial thought on it. I still like it either way. It still looks neat, but if I were to buy one from myself, I would ideally like to have one that gives me the option to go completely off.
Which is coming. Okay, so now that you've got Dustin's take, let's see Dustin strutting his stuff with his F-16 and me showing off a little bit with the Avanti. Check this footage out. Check out how awesome these things look in the air, and after you check that out, we'll meet you back here and we'll sum it up real quick.
Landing!
Looks pretty cool in the air, doesn't it? Dustin and I thought so. Neither of us really realized how much we would enjoy having something like this in our airplanes. It's something that we both shopped before. Neither of us had pulled the trigger, mainly because of the price point. Neither of us has any super scale EDFs that we want a center burner in to add that scale fidelity. We're just kind of messing around and playing with sport jets for the most part. And it's just not worth, you know, $70, $80, $100, $120 to have a little flickering light in the tailpipe. But let me tell you something, for 40 bucks, I mean, I'm all over this. I think it's a great product that is going to be absolutely superb in its second iteration when it's got more programmability. I like it the way that it is. I think some people it might be a deal breaker that you can't bring it in from all the way off, but that's going to change very, very soon. And why? Because the owner is awesome and he listens to the consumers. I think KMRC model is going to be a force to be reckoned with because they listen to their customers. And that's, I mean, that's everything to us. To me, there's so many large companies out there that have been doing this for so long. They don't listen until, you know, 1,000 people or 500 people say the same thing in 4 or 5 different forums and they hear it over and over again. Then they might make a change. This gentleman has made a change based on sending these to just a few people that have reviewed them so far. That's really impressive to me. The next item that they're going to come out with is a super lightweight GPS speed meter plus battery checker. We're going to be getting a couple of those. We'll let you know what we think of those. Keep an eye on KMRC model. We'll leave a link in the description where you can get to them and check their products out. They've got some pretty cool ideas, and if I know the owner the way that I think I do from talking to him, they're going to be very, very cool. He's going to listen to you and give you what you want, and I like that. I think you will too. Check them out. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Take it easy.